Alright guys, 2011 Chrysler 300. We're changing out a rear axle today, specifically the right rear axle. And yeah, basically there's a couple different axles for this car depending on if it's a V6, if it's a V8, which gear ratio it has, if it's rear wheel drive or all wheel drive. As far as I could see, there was only two, but there might be more than two different axles for it. So this one is a 2011 with a 3.6 liter V6. It is rear wheel drive and it has a 2.65 gear ratio in the rear diff. So I have a Cardone axle, part number 66-3691, and we're gonna see if this fits. My parts guy told me he thinks it's the right one, so we're gonna rip this thing apart and find out. But one thing you might wanna do is just basically measure it up and check it. From the reading that we were doing the other day, you either got like a 27 or a 30, was it 30?
32 spline.
32, yeah, 30 or 32 tooth spline shaft. So first things first, we gotta get this thing jacked up, which we have ours on the lift, and we're gonna take this wheel off, which should be 22 millimeter wheel nuts. Okay, so I don't know, like you pretty much gotta like rip it apart to find out to compare. So, oh, that's cool. It's got a broken spring in the back. I didn't even notice that. Nice. Okay. Here's my plan of attack. We're gonna take. So I'm just taking the speed sensor off right now. We're gonna let that hang out. But I'm basically just gonna leave the shock and the coil spring attached to that arm because we don't want to unload that. But I'm going to take the brakes off, and then I'm going to take all the suspension arms off and basically get the knuckle so I can just take the knuckle right off, and then the axle will be there and we can take the axle out. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it, but that's just the way I'm going to do it. So all right, we're taking brakes off right now. 15 millimeter bolts for the caliper here, and if your slider pins are stuck and spinning like mine, you can see here, we're just gonna try to spin this. See how that's spinning? We gotta hold it. We got these skinny wrenches from Ulsa Tools. 18 millimeter is the size that you need to hold those. You could also use vice grips. Once we get this off, we'll just hang it up off to the side. Everything's rough. Okay, now we gotta take this off. 18 millimeter bolts. Yep. Okay, these are gonna be a little tight. They have some Loctite on them, but we're gonna just buzz these out. We can take this off. Now we can get a rotor off. Now, this thing might be a little rusted on there. So you might have to get the hammer and just beat it a little bit. We're just getting caught up on the emergency brake shoes. So we might have to try to back those off a little bit. There'll be a rust lip that's formed on the inside to bite in the back of the shoes. So if we can get those shoes to come in a little bit, maybe we can get this off. All right, so the adjustment plug is right behind where the wheel speed sensor is gonna be. You pull the rubber plug out, that gives you access to the adjuster star that's inside somewhere. You're not actually going to be able to physically see it with your eyes, so you have to feel for it. I'm using a tool like this. This is for adjusting those. And we need to feel out where this thing is and then wind it back to bring the shoes back in as far as we can. And this is maybe the most frustrating part of this whole job. Okay, so in this case, the adjuster star was seized and it would not turn whatsoever. Now you can see how much rust is on the inside of this rotor here. This is where the parking brake shoes run. And obviously they never ever get used, just like on every car. but the rust will form a lip behind the shoes and it'll pull on the shoes when you're trying to get the disc off. So if yours is seized in there like that, you might just have to rip the disc off, and if you damage it, you got to replace the disc. Probably gonna have to replace all the parking brake shoes with all the hardware and all the other stuff if you want to keep all that. So now that we've got that off, we can continue by now removing, let's take off this axle nut, I guess, first, make sure that our axle will move inside of here. And you know, now that I think of it, I'm just curious whether we can actually just get the axle to come right through where the bearing is. If we unbolt the bearing, can we just get the axle to come through that hole? Or is it too small? Okay, we want to take this axle nut out. It's a 32 millimeter. Bam. Okay. Now you can see how it's free. That's what we want. We want it to be free. If it's not free, block of wood and a hammer. Do not hammer directly on there. We don't want to wreck the threads. Okay, now what I might try to do is I'm going to see. So either option A, we can try to take the bolts out of the wheel bearing in the back and take the wheel bearing off and try to take the axle through the center of the steering knuckle. Or if that doesn't work, option B is to undo the parking brake cable, leave the parking brake cable with the car because we don't want to dink around with that, and then just undo all the suspension and take the whole knuckle and the bearing off with the axle together. So see, I don't want to damage this bearing. So it's a steel bearing and an aluminum knuckle, so they usually get all corroded and gross together and they don't come apart very nice. So my fear is that it's probably just not going to come out. I can almost guarantee you. So I think I'm just going to go right to option B and try to take this parking brake cable off and mess around with that and just take the whole knuckle off. All right, so we've decided after going back and forth 50 times that we are going to take the emergency brake shoes apart and take the cable off. There's a little connector that's in between the subframe up in there that connects the emergency brake or parking brake cables together, and it's all rusted together, so I know that there's no chance of getting that thing apart without cutting it apart and replacing it, and I don't have one. So we're going to take this off. I took a picture of the emergency brake shoes where all the springs go and everything, and now I'm just going to try to take these off as delicately as possible, even though they are junk. And then yeah, once I get these springs off, we should be able to get this little mechanism out and hopefully free up the cable to get the cable out of the mechanism that engages and disengages the parking brake shoes, which then I can remove the cable from the knuckle, and then we can proceed with removing all of the bolts from the suspension to take the knuckle off and remove it with the axle. Comprende? Okay, so we got all these rusty springs. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to try to break the rust bond. I'm going to spray some penetrating oil on them, and then we're going to try to take those out. Yeah, bigger pliers. Yeah, we need bigger pliers. Now, do I need to remove the shoes completely? Or can I just sort of move them out of the way? I can probably just move them out of the way a little bit, like that. Okay, now, I honestly don't know how this comes apart, but somehow the cable attaches to the inside of this. Oh, I can see where the cable comes through. You see that little bar that's down there, in there? That's the cable. And then it attaches to this somehow. So we gotta figure out how to unlatch that. I don't want to like cook the cable or the bearing. Yeah. All right, so don't want to burn myself. This little mechanism that's inside here, there's a little arm. It's supposed to pivot out and move, except it's seized in there. So I had to heat it up with the torch. So I'm gonna free that up on the bench so we can put it back together. But now that we have that off, we can take the bolt out of the back of here and then pull the cable out that way, so that now we can take all the bolts out of the suspension and take the knuckle off with the axle. Okay, T30 Torx bolt remove. Now we should be able to hopefully, yes, remove this. Maybe.
Twist it.
Yeah. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's start undoing all these suspension components. I know our spring right here is putting a lot of downforce on this arm right here. So we don't want to undo the strut. Leave the shock absorber there. We'll leave that alone. I'm going to, I guess, start by taking off a bunch of these. They're probably all 18 millimeters, but this nut, this other nut down here for this arm, and then we'll probably take this one off. The one that's at the very bottom for that big lower control arm that the spring sits on, it has, there's a big bolt, I think, that goes through. It's a hex key bolt from here. So we're gonna leave that one till last. Hopefully none of these are seized in place. Hopefully they all come out. All right, we're just heating up these bolts right now. Then we're gonna hit them with the gun. This thing's pretty sick. We got the induction heater here. Check out the link in the description for one. Man, they come in clutch when it comes to rusty bolts and stuff like that. Literally just hit it for like 15, 20 seconds. Grab your gun. Yeah, spinning the bolt on the other side, but I mean, it works wonders. All right, then we just buzz this out. Sway bar link now loose. Watch out, those bolts, they will be hot. So you gotta watch out that you don't grab them and burn your hands. All right, next thing we wanna do, we're just gonna start taking some of the suspension off. So I'm gonna do this one probably next. Looks like it's 18 millimeter. So okay, and then we got another one that's right here we're gonna do. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of sketchy. Because you all right, now we're gonna do this other one that's down here. Wonder what happens if you lick these.
Yeah. $200.
You want a brand?
Yeah.
Can't get on it, it's too rusty. I just gotta hold this other side here. I'll figure out what size hex key we need. Okay, we got this off now.
What size was that?
So this is a 21 millimeter nut followed by a 12 millimeter hex key. for this bolt. That's gonna be real nice for you guys that are at home that just have a regular socket set. Way to just screw you over. Maybe. Did I calculate correctly? I think it's just like he says, like how the, remember how he was saying the alternator thing? Oh, that pin goes all the way through. Okay, we're about ready to go. Nice, what a cluster that thing is. Cool. Okay, so you can see inside of there, you see this tone ring that's supposed to be attached to the axle? That's the funniest shit I've seen. Never seen that before. I've done so many tone rings and wheel bearings and axles. Never seen that before in my life.
The tone ring came off the axle and attached itself to the knuckle.
Inside there.
No,
Because I could see with the video scope with the sensor out. You could spin the axle and I could see just a sliver of the rusty side of the axle spinning, but the tone ring was just sitting there stationary. So this is why we got to change the axle, because the glued on magnet that's glued on here, it fell off. So
there's the new magnet.
all right, so now I'm just going to use my pry bar, put it up against this ledge here on the axle. We're going to try to just hammer it out. So it's coming out now. All I'm going to do is just grab it and pull it out the rest of the way. No need to have it fall and break, even though it's kind of junk. I don't want to damage it in case this isn't the right axle that I have, the replacement one. I don't know, maybe that's, is it supposed to be a little extended? Maybe that is the right one. All right, we're just taking this tone ring out of here right now. And then we're just gonna clean up all the metal, get everything ready to go. We did a spline count on the axles. Everything matches up good. So we should be good to go. Look at that. Greasy. Okay, so we want the circ clip to be with the open end facing down. And then we're going to just line this thing up, basically, stick it in the hole. I'm just gonna rest it over here in the exhaust. We want to be careful not to hit the oil seal on our way in. And then once we get this thing started in here, what I'm gonna do is just use a dead blow hammer that's soft and try to hammer this thing in. Usually a good shovel put it in, but that snap ring is pretty open. Okay, so I was afraid that was going to happen. This crappy snap ring that they give you is too far spread open, so of course the splines caught it and just mangled it. So now we got to try to steal this one and basically transfer it over. So we just got to use a pick. And I'm gonna go grab a second pick so that I can sneak underneath of that. Well, I might have to go put this in the vise. Shit. So now we just gotta kind of work our way around here. We don't want to spread this thing too much. Here. Now go see if we can put on the new axle. There. That fits better. Okay. All right, so this Cardone, we build it better. Part number right here, 66-3691. The circlip that's on the end of the axle is a little bit longer than the OEM one, although it's the same diameter. But you'll notice that although the open end to the bottom, it droops down quite a bit. And I thought, okay, it'll probably be fine, but the thought ran through the back of my head that it's possible it's drooped down too far and the splines are gonna catch it and fold the snap ring, and that's exactly what it did. So I took this off, and we're gonna throw that in the garbage because it's junk. And then I took the OEM snap or circlip off of the end of the original axle and put it on the end of here, and then it just went in the way it was supposed to. So hopefully you don't have that problem, but if you have one of these Cardone axles, just watch for that because that could ruin your day. I did have to file down the splines. There was a couple splines that got sort of mashed from the snap ring, just folding its way back over the splines. So we got those cleaned up all pretty and nice, and it went in the way it was supposed to. So now we're gonna continue. Okay, so now we got this thing all cleaned up. We got all the crap blown out of here. Now we're ready to stick this back on and get some bolts started. So let's do that. That goes on like so. I just gotta grab a bolt so I can stick it in there. That's this one right here. Let's see if we can do this without destroying this. This is gonna be a cluster right here because that's gotta go down. This has gotta go in. We also don't wanna destroy that magnet. Oh, should I punch that back? No, it's gonna be corroded in there real bad. Oh, this thing's in. Okay, we're just getting all the corrosion and rust off of these as well. We want nice, clean, smooth surfaces so that everything goes back together nicely. Any corrosion and rust is just gonna fight you trying to go back on. Also, one thing to note, so on this bottom piece, that goes onto this arm here, there is actually a dowel. It's a steel dowel that slides inside of this aluminum knuckle, and when you tighten the bolt down, that steel sleeve moves forwards and sort of clamps down. So it makes it a little difficult when you go back on unless you clean everything, and that steel sleeve is going to be rusted / corroded in place, so good luck trying to move that. I'm just gonna pretty much buff this down just a hair so that I'm able to get it in there. And then, yeah, we want it to just be able to slide in just nice. ouch. Yeah. Guys, so here's the torque specs for all the back hardware. So first of all, we have the camber link, which is number 1. That's going to be 72 foot-pounds, followed by the compression link, number 5. That's 60 foot-pounds. Stabilizer link, 45 foot-pounds. Tension link, which is number 6, 72 foot-pounds. Toe link, which is number 3, 70 foot-pounds. Our axle nut, the big one, 32 millimeter, that's going to be 157 foot-pounds. We have our speed sensor, that's 97 inch-pounds. And then we have our parking brake cable bolt that holds the cable to the knuckle. That's going to be 71 inch-pounds.
Other way around.
Oh. All right, so I just put a little jack underneath of the suspension there to sort of compress the suspension up a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is just get these bolts lined up. You can see I've got this one in here right now. So that looks like this bolt. These bolts are pretty much the same for this arm and this arm. They also have these nuts with big washers on them. I'll get those started on here. And then we'll run. All right, we messed that one up. We gotta put the bolt in from the back side. Oh, there's no room to stick. That goes there. Like that. Stick our parking brake cable in there. And we want to line this bottom suspension piece up. Oops, might have to let that down a little bit. Just stick that sensor in there, grab a bolt for that. All right, so that's a royal pain in the behind. We got the our actuator piece right here freed up, and the inside arm pivots now. So you want to make sure that when you put this thing in, the arm is like facing upwards and it's folded inside of the outer shell. Then I fish that piece in there with the cable out. And then once I get it into this position, I stick the cable in and I sort of use the hook and hook it up in, and then now you're at this point. So then what we can do is basically stick our shoes where they need to go up in here, and we got to get our springs started. I also have the adjuster sitting here on the other side. I'm sure it'll fall out 50 times before I can get a spring in there. I'm gonna hook the bottom in first. I might have that backwards. And we're going to get some pliers. Okay, that side's hooked in, and now we got to basically just put our spring in on the other side. There, that one's in, that one's in. Looks like our adjuster's sitting where it's supposed to sit. The shoes are on there, everything's good. Now, if your shoes, if you get a bunch of grease and stuff on there and you use your parking brake, you want to clean them up, you could just use some 40 or 60 grit sandpaper and just give them a scuff just to clean up that surface before you put the disc back on. These ones are never going to get used, so I'll probably scuff them anyways, but once we get that done, basically what you're going to want to do is wind this adjuster star adjustment backs all the way so that this collapses as far as possible. Then we'll be able to put the disc on, and we can go in from the back side. You can see where this hole is right here, and we can adjust that adjuster to bring the shoes out and set them up for the disc. And I'll show you how to do that so that if you're going to use your parking brake, you'll know how to do all this, and then it'll work. To back the screw off, we're going to go this way. And you can see that's just about backed off all the way there. It'll only go so far. There, that's all the way. Now we're going to stick the disc on there. And then what I like to do is just stick a wheel nut or two on there to keep this disc perfectly flush where it's supposed to be. Is pretty much just go in through this hole over here with this tool. You can try using a flathead screwdriver if you have one. I'm not sure if that'll work. And then we just need to adjust the star until it won't go anymore. All right, so once you've adjusted it all the way and the disc won't move and it's stuck, then you're gonna go back and back that star off just a few turns so that the shoes are set up as close to the inside of this as possible without dragging. And that way, when you press your foot on the parking brake pedal or pull the handle, whatever's in this car, the shoes are gonna be right there to the disc and they'll apply immediately and everything should work good. If they're not set up close enough, then you're gonna have too much travel in the pedal and the pedal may bottom out before you get enough pressure to engage to keep that parking brake engaged. Or if you have it set up too tight and it's dragging, you could induce a lot of heat into the disc and cause it to warp and other bad things like destroy the wheel bearing. So that's a pretty important step to get right. So now that that's all set up, we can stick our rubber plug back into the back of that thing. And yeah, sorry, it's not in a very nice spot. Sorry for all the back and forth. Get this started, hopefully. Start. T30 Torx. Sensor, 10 millimeter. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I got it going. All right, so those two anchor bolts, the 18 millimeter ones, those are gonna be 98 foot-pounds. And then when we get our brake caliper on here, the smaller ones that hold the caliper to the anchor, gonna be 28 foot-pounds. Better clean that up. Just about done here. Thanks for sticking through the video if you've watched it from beginning to end. But right now what I got to do is clean up the backs of these hubs. They're the mating surface from the back of the wheel to the disc. We want to make sure that's clean and free of any corrosion so that we can get a nice accurate torque spec and not have the wheel nuts come loose. So once I get this cleaned up, we'll get the wheel on, and that's pretty much it. I'll give you a torque spec for some wheels here in a minute. I'm gonna get to clean them. All right, so once you get everything on, torque down your wheel nuts in a 5-star pattern in 2 passes. 110 foot-pounds is the torque spec for these wheel nuts. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, throw them in the comment section below. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have. And hopefully you find this video helpful. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more videos. We'll catch you in the next one.